Hey, this is Apostle with Front Project. In this week, we are making this walnut and epoxy coasters. And if you learned something in this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. You can combine different wood and epoxy colors to have multiple design options. But this week, we are going for walnut and different color variations of epoxy. First, I'll use a steel brush to clean the outer part of subwood to be able to get a good bond between epoxy and wood. Then I need to cut 10 cm piece that both sides are parallel to each other, and this walnut piece doesn't have any straight edge to get reference from. After the first cut, I used my combination square to measure the exact size of the pie in the piece, plus the blade thickness. In this way, the both sides are parallel to each other. Now that the parts are really small to hold by hand, I'll use hot glue to attach the parts to a scrap wood that I know, perfect 90 degree. I used the miter saw again to cut 6 pieces that are exactly the same thickness. This is a giveaway project. You can find all the instructions in the descriptions for the giveaway. Now that the wooden pieces are ready, we can start mixing epoxy. The mixing ratio for this epoxy is 2:1. Always make sure to read the instructions before mixing epoxy. Generally I use liquid dye for epoxy, but for this project I think I'll use powder pigment. When you make any casting, you need to be sure that the wood is secure and it's not floating on top of epoxy. And I don't recommend to pour on top of wood directly. You might introduce so much air bubbles between wood and epoxy. After approximately half an hour, I just draw some swirls with a stick. Now the first casting is ready. I just need to make this process 5 more times. For the last casting, I was a bit impatient and I made a quick mold from scrap pieces. I will cover how I flatten the epoxy castings in the future videos and will go in more detail. There are small size differences between pieces. Therefore, I will stack them on top of each other with double-sided tape and sand them together. Then they will be identical. The orbital sander have velcro pads to stick to sandpapers, and if you apply too much pressure on the corners, you might remove more materials at the edges. To prevent that, I cut more scrap wood, exactly the same thickness of the coasters, and make a frame around the pieces. I started with 80 grit, then went up to 320. Before the final sanding by hand with 400 grit, I just sprayed some water to see how they will look after I apply the finish. Before applying the finish, I cleaned all the pieces with microfiber to get rid of all the debris and dust. The finish I will use for the coasters is hard wax oil, and I will apply 2 coats. It's highly water resistant and very environmental friendly. After the first coat, I waited about 20 minutes, wiped it off, and applied the second coat. This is it for this week, and thank you for watching the video until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.